This session is scaling the supply chain, a made in India smart protein transformation, right? Till now, we've been seeing a lot about financing, investing in this space, scaling up different innovative transformations. But how do we scale the supply chain that is needed for it? There are a lot of issues when it comes to sourcing indigenous crops. There are high import duties. There's unavailability of ingredients for local manufacturing of innovative next generation of products. So with a strong focus on becoming Atmanirbhar and, obviously a focus on making in India, I guess there are immense opportunities for the smart protein sector, which is the sunrise sector, in terms of crop optimization, indigenous protein sourcing, new product development, manufacturing, and even export, make in India for the world, Middle East, North America, Europe. We've been seeing multiple startups now starting to export in these domains in terms of end products. So let us focus on creating the next generation of products by making our supply chains and value chains robust. And let's find out how India can play a unique role in the global smart protein transformation with our unique value propositions and how our key stakeholders, including the speakers in the next panel, can help us build a roadmap for the future in terms of tapping into the various aspects of smart protein value chains. So let me quickly welcome Radhika Ramesh from GFI India, who will be moderating the session on the stage. And then we also, Radhika, do you want to join up? And then I'll invite everyone, yeah. Okay, great. So first up, we have Debomitra De from Brabender. Can we have a round of applause for Debomitra De, who is a food extrusion specialist at CW Brabender Instruments from New Jersey. Debomitra is a food extrusion specialist with Brabender, and she leads the food laboratory and extensively works on developing snacks, meat analogs, pet food, among others uses of extrusion technology. She is also involved in several collaborative projects with research institutions and universities in the US and Europe. She earned her PhD in food science from Washington State University in April 2002. Welcome, Debomitra. Next up, we have Rinka Banerjee from Thinking Forks. Rinka is the founder of Thinking Forks Consulting. Rinka has spent almost 16 years working with Unilever, and more recently she's been working on coming up with end-to-end consulting for R&D solutions and technology solutions for food and beverage industry with Thinking Forks, and they've helped more than 30 companies to launch more than 100 products in over last 7 years. Rinka has a master's degree in food science from the University of Vermont, USA, and has a bachelor's in dairy technology from NDRI, Karnal. Welcome to the panel, Rinka. Next up, we have Dr. Dayakar Rao from IIMR. Dr. Dayakar Rao is a principal scientist of Indian Institute of Millet Research. We heard a lot about millets and indigenous crops today. Dr. Dayakar Rao is the CEO of NutriHub and is also currently serving as a principal scientist of ICAR IIMR. Dr. Rao is a renowned agriculture scientist credited with the development of value chain of millets, which having rich experience of more than 3 decades with a specialization in processing, value addition of millets and commercialization of end products. Dr. Dayakar has been instrumental in establishing a dedicated technology business incubator called NutriHub TBI, hosted at ICAR IIMR, to help nutri-cereal startups grow in a streamlined fashion by providing them with the required technology and business support system. Dr. Dayakar has developed more than 70 technologies, 50 plus value-added products, and 200 plus recipes and formulations under various research projects and commercialized them through NutriHub. A very warm welcome on the panel, Dr. Dayakar Rao. Let's have a round of applause for Dr. V.K. Vidyarthi from APIDA. Shri Vinod Kumar Vidyarthi is a General Manager in Agriculture and Processed Food Export Development Authority and handles geographical indicators, common infrastructure projects, agriculture processing, value addition of products, cold chain of food products, health foods, exports from urban agriculture, novel foods, vegan products, and multiple other categories amongst others at APIDA. In the past, he's handled issues related to World Trade Organization, foreign trade policy and procedure, sanitary and phytosanitary issues, market access issues, and participated in several trade agreements, bilateral and multilateral. Vidyarthi ji has been instrumental in providing dedicated support for the growth and development of the vegan industry in India with the formation of an expert committee on vegan products at APIDA. So, wish you a very warm welcome, Vidyarthi ji. Next up, let's have a big round of applause for Kevin Parekh from Proeon. Kevin is a co-founder at Proeon, and he forayed into entrepreneurship by co-founding Proeon in 2018, which produces high-quality plant protein ingredients with superior nutrition profile, functional profile, and sensory profile. Kevin is passionate about intelligent innovation for sustainable production and consumption of foods that leads to better health, safer planet, and cruelty-free practice. Kevin is a management graduate from IRMA, Anand, and a biotechnology graduate from Sardar Patel University. A very warm welcome, Kevin. Last but not the least, we have Naina Sharma from Invest India. Naina Sharma is a senior investment specialist in Invest India. Naina has been a member of the Agri-Food Cluster at Invest India, the Government of India's Investment Promotion and Trade Facilitation Agency. In the past 2 years, she has spearheaded multiple initiatives such as reviewing the laws that impact the livestock sector, created an export and market access strategy of dairy and meat products, identified key agro-food commodities with the potential of geographical indication tagging, and drafted policy recommendations for enhancing support for agri-tech startups. Additionally, Naina has been working closely with GFI to draft policy recommendations for the cultivated meat sector and how government support can be leveraged to basically develop the industry further. Naina studied law and public policy in India and the States. And obviously, to take on this session, I'll invite Radhika Ramesh, who's our policy associate at GFI India. Radhika, on to you.
Thank you so much, Shardul. Thank you all for joining us. I know it's been a long day, so really appreciate you joining us for the last session of the evening. So today we have, scaling the supply chain. So thank you all for joining us. We'll start with a round of introductory questions just to understand a little bit about your work and really just in the smart protein sector. So we'll start with a business perspective. So Kevin, your company Proeon was selected as the technology pioneers of 2022. Congratulations, by the way, by the World Economic Forum to tackling climate change issues, providing tech-enabled solutions. Could you tell us a little bit about your work and how the work of Proeon has evolved since its inception in 2018?
Thank you so much, and thanks GFI and FICCI for this opportunity. At Proeon, essentially we are a B2B ingredients company. As compared to how we have evolved from 2018 when we started with a focus on nutraceuticals, and since early 2020 we have been focusing on creating the next generation of plant protein ingredients that are superior in terms of functionality, sensory and nutrition profile. So our focus is that there are a lot of companies who are doing very good work in making consumer-facing end formulations and products, but they cannot make really good products if they don't have really good ingredients. So that's where we come in. We have done a lot of research right from scratch. We actually, there has been a lot of talk of evaluating and using indigenous sources. So we actually evaluated close to 40 different sources of proteins from crops that are available in India. Created a proprietary process that helps you get high purity protein without any anti-nutrition factors, at the same time retaining all the functionality that's there. So our focus is basically helping companies create really good products that make food healthy for people, planet and conscience.
Thank you so much. We'll move to Dr. Dayakar Rao. Thank you. Dr. Rao, your work at the Indian Institute of Millet Research has been phenomenal. Recently, GFI India and IMR signed a MOU, or a Memorandum of Understanding, to formalize our long-standing partnership of 4 years. Could you tell us a little bit about the work that's currently underway at IMR and how it's relevant for the smart protein sector?
Thank you, Radhika, for this opportunity, and GFI. I'm very much elated to be part of this, the emerging area, which has relevance both research and commercialization thereof, and ultimate benefit to the consumer. I think that's what our 12 years of more than a decade work on millets, which was primarily a domesticated crop grown for own self-consumption, to make it a commercial crop, built a technology around it, working all the gaps in the value chain, and then making it a successful value chain, piloting it and upscaling. Now, I am very happy and elated to say that today, I think in 2 months away, the International Year of Millets 2023 is gone. So we made it possible. An institute, which is primarily a crop improvement institute, has taken things beyond their reach and tried to build the value chain around it. So that one of the major impinging factor was creation of demand, because the supply side was fine, more and more. It is grown, the higher productivity, production, all the agriculture part is fine. But then if you don't really build up the demand around it, then there were several other factors which were impinging. So we had to address those things, bringing in many stakeholders, trying to work on that value chain and make it finally, and take it to the logical conclusion of trying to build up the last mile connectivity was the biggest challenge. Technology people can build around, but then see, we are not akin to this sort of the forward integration and go to the market strategies. But now today, I'm very comfortably placed to tell you that this all happened. And today I'm just NutriHub. We have built institutions that can really take it to center of excellence on millets. And then NutriHub, a technology business incubator. I think you'll be surprised to know that past 4 years that about more than 300 startups are being handheld. All the 360 degrees, we are providing financial facilitation and the technology backstopping, that is very vital for taking it to that. And now this we have put before the country to take them to the world. So I think that is what the achievement, I compliment the entire team. Now coming and trying to connect with this, because always many of the other cereals have a lot of advantage going ahead of it. Now bringing a millet and trying to connect with the protein is something very vital. Now if you see carefully, observe that as protein is anything about 8 to 12%. But when you get into the research data and all those things, for each of the cultivars, there is a lot of differences in the protein content that is there. Now, for example, there are about 9 millets. Proso millet is one millet which has about, we observed 15 to 17%. So for every 100 grams, you are going to add about at least 5 grams of protein. So that is incredible. So just trying to get into that maths of it and trying to put it to the value to the consumer is very important. Then we thought that how we can extract this thing, and that's the work which we initiated. We are working, we know that we are not, this is an agriculture institute, crop improvement, but today's context, I think there's nothing like that. People have to give away that thought that they can work in isolation and all this. Agriculture, food processing, farm mechanization, engineering, entrepreneurship, all these subjects must be nutrition. All are allied fields, and then they must go together and build a value to the consumer. That is what is very important. This we have learned, and we would like to see that the real technology that is available in the Proso millet is fine. One thing that can you think of going with 15 to 17% a plant-based protein product? Yes, you can build up, but why only going for Proso millet alone? Why not you integrate? Now, just if you are trying to look into the landscape of the plant proteins, mainly the lentils are the ones which have a real wide scope and all this. So, but then when you consider that the quality protein is very important. So the amino acids that contain in plant proteins, you know that they are not like the animal proteins. And if you see the pea protein, it has a deficiency of methionine. And these millets have plenty of methionine. So why don't you marry them and then bring them a product which is of a qualitative nature and add value to the consumer? So I think that sort of a thing, lead research must happen, and we are working around that and trying to build up. And some of the startups are also, we have, because already I think Kevin would agree, Irma man must be talking about it. Madam, by the way, I come from NDRA, I'm an alumni of NDRA. So with all this background, I think we should be able to bring about a qualitative product, and especially in terms of the This is what positioning is very important, I feel so. So I think millets have a great scope in integrating with the existing commodity. And multigrain is very important. And adding to that, just micronutrients that they have are plenty. So the nutrition, to cut short, I think I would list.
No, thank you so much. I like how you've dove into the challenges, but we'll get to that in the next segment. Dr. Debo Mitra, can we understand a little bit about Brabender's work globally and also the work with the academic ecosystem in India?
Okay. Thanks, Radhika, and good evening to everyone. And I really thank GFI for giving me this opportunity to be here and talking to you all. So, coming to the answer to your question. So, firstly, Brabender is an instrumentation company, and we manufacture extruders, which is one of the important machines for producing plant-based meat. And this processing technology has been around for over the last, in terms of the plant-based protein scene, it has been there for about 20 years. And we are still developing, and even from our side, we are doing a lot of R&D when it comes to the machinery, to what configurations we can provide to our customers so that they can produce products of their desirability, as in to get the perfect texture, which could be very close to the actual meat, because here we are mostly trying to mimic mimic meat. That's why we call it as plant-based meat. And with Brabender, our headquarters is in Germany, and we have our sales office in America, where I work as a food extrusion specialist. So in North America and Canada, what we do is we offer help to our customers. So our customers are both from the industry as well as from the academia. So when it comes to the industry, we really help them with setting up the formulations or helping them to achieve the texture that they want for the products. And with universities, we are mostly helping them with research, and we give them maximum support in terms of instrumentation or whatever help they need with resources. So that's how we collaborate with the universities. So this is what I was talking about, North America. Now coming to the situation in Europe, so our headquarters in Germany, they work extensively with universities like Wageningen University, which is also one of the pioneers into the plant-based meat production or research. And at the same time, we work with a lot of universities in Italy and Germany. So that's how we support academia and industry. So yeah, that would be my answer to the question.
Thank you so much. We'll speak more about the partnership with the Indian academic ecosystem a little later on. Mr. Vidyarthi ji, thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience in working with the government at the Agriculture and Processed Foods Export Development Authority, also known as APIDA, just supporting the agri-tech startups and also recently now supporting the smart protein companies. Could you please share with us a bit more about your work?
Namaskar to everyone. Good evening. First of all, I want to express my sincere thanks to the GFI and its entire team for their support and inviting me to share my experience with you. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Vinod Kumar Vidyarthi. I am the General Manager in APEDA. As you know, maybe you are not well aware of the APEDA. APEDA is an autonomous body under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Department of Commerce. The mandate of APEDA is just to promote the exports of agri-food products from India. As there are many entrepreneurs are attending this summit, I want to apprise them. APEDA extends financial assistance to their exporters and also create common infrastructure in the agriculture supply chain. So in this smart protein, what we can do, we can assist the exporters by extending the financial assistance up to the 2 crores and 50 lakhs for the laboratories, and to develop the common infrastructure on pan-India basis for the exports, we extend up to 6 crore uh, financial assistance to the state government organizations. And apart from that, APEDA also organize buyer-seller meet, reverse buyer-seller meet, and participate in various exhibitions to promote the agriculture and food products from India. So I request all the agripreneurs or the entrepreneurs, those who are here, they should visit our APEDA website and avail the opportunities which are being offered by APEDA for financial assistance and other supports to develop this industry very well. So as far as my experience with the GFI, it is very rich. And we just met 4 or 5 months back. So we have formulated a committee to develop the standards of plant-based protein vegan products. So these standards likely to be completed in the end of this 2022. And in this vegan product standards, we will address all the entire range, like the foods, the leather, the textile, even the pet food also. So we have a big range for these products, and all these products have a great potential in the international market. Though maybe the concept may be new to the world, but as per the data is available in the international market and in the market, so there is a paradigm shift from non-veg food to the veg food globally everywhere, especially in the post-COVID scenario. So we have to take this opportunity and we have to harness the opportunity, and we have to register our presence in the international market by exporting these products. Just now I have tested many products outside this premises where they are showcasing their products. Some of the products are really very good. So we have a good opportunities which is waiting for us. So let us utilize it, and APEDA will support you everywhere, and whatever we can do our best. We are in process of interaction with the embassies also to invite the delegations of the importers in India, and we will also go for the exhibitions internationally and domestic, where we will invite the importers across the world to display our strength in this sector. So though we have so many challenges, but as I see in agripreneur or smart protein foods processors, all are young brigade. So they have a lot of enthusiasm and energy. Government is ready to support them. Let's come forward and use and avail the opportunity which is being given by us. Thank you.
So much. Speaking of government support, we have Naina here. Naina, you work at the food and agri-tech team at Invest India. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience in supporting startups and how that support can also be leveraged for the smart protein industry?
Firstly, thank you, Radhika, for this opportunity. So let me tell you a little bit about what Invest India does. So as the investment facilitation arm of the government, we help any company that is looking to expand or enter India, and all our services are pro bono. So we help companies avail schemes and incentives by the government. We also help companies with market research and related strategies. So currently the government has a whole range of incentives that benefit companies across the agri-food value chain. For instance, Startup India has the Startup Seed Fund. And if you look at the body of the scheme, it clearly mentions that companies operating in verticals related to food processing, biotechnology, and agriculture are high priority sectors for the government. So under such schemes, companies can avail both grants as well as debt finance. And also in recent times, all the major line ministries in the agri-food space have been organizing the Startup Challenge. So, we come up with a whole range of problem statements, and we have winners within each category. So what I think we can do going forward is that within these startup challenge, we can have problem statements that are relevant to the smart protein sector. And that would encourage more startups to come forward. And additionally, I can think of the production linked incentive scheme by MOFPI. We can come up with a policy recommendation for the government so that they insert a special category for the smart protein segment in PLI. I think that will go a long way towards making India a major exporter. So we are not just looking at the domestic consumers, right? So these are a few things I had in mind.
For sharing that perspective. We'll get more into how the government can support in the next few segments. So Rinka, finally to you. You bring an unique perspective to this discussion because you worked in a multinational company and now you're also advising startups. Could you tell us some unique perspectives that you've sort of realized over your career and with relevance to the smart protein sector?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me here, and thanks, audience, for actually staying back so late. I think, in my 20 plus years working in a large company and then switching the gear with smaller startups, I think startups always have come to me with the most disruptive ideas. Yeah, that's the first thing I have to say, and I think that's, just to think that you can do something, to have the courage to say that you can do something different in the market is great. So, but of course, a lot of times when startups come to me, they come to me with just an idea, right? So it's haven't really been well thought through in terms of what is the consumer problem you're solving, how are you going to get there, what kind of sort of flavors and what kind of stuff is going to work with the consumer, right? And I think that's the point that in the investor session as well, I think Pranay made a very important point that getting the product right is probably the first thing that one needs to focus on. And I think that's something that startups do struggle with. And that's something that we've been able to help them in over the last 8 years. Literally, I think we must have launched about 140 more products, and a lot of them were for startups. Just to articulate, that this is the consumer problem I'm solving, this is what my product is going to do for, that consumer problem and so on, is something that I do find startups have difficulty in articulating. And also because large companies will usually put in a lot of market research before they get onto a product. Finally, this is what I'm going to be going ahead with, etc. That bandwidth, a lot of startups don't have to start with. And I think that's one difference that I see the way a startup and a large company would do. However, in startups, obviously, there is a much higher level of agility. And that is something that we bring on the table a lot more of, because we've got very strong partnerships, and I'll talk about that maybe later in the session. This whole thing about working with a very large ecosystem of partners who can help you solve the problem and therefore bring to market things with speed is something that can be extremely good for startups. Of course, today I think the world is changing, and even the larger organizations who would have otherwise taken a long time are beginning to sort of get traction and get speed onto things. But I think speed, agility is again something that would be different with startups. Yeah.
Much for listing those out. So we've all kind of hinted at some challenges. India is seen as a very unique and fun and exciting landscape, but there are challenges. So let's start with you, Kevin. Can you tell us some of the bottlenecks you faced with just scaling up, your supply chain, your ingredient supply chain?
Absolutely. So that's one tough part of working on ingredients and scaling them up to a sensible level of scale where you are able to serve the growing market of India, at the same time also aim on being a substantial exporter. So the major challenge comes in, and probably Dr. Rao can appreciate that, is in India we have a lot of acreage of certain crops, like, and this has been said that mung bean and chickpea, which are the two major raw materials we deal in. India is probably the largest grower of both of these things, but there is a lot of variation in terms of varieties and cultivars that are grown in different areas. You get a lot of variation in the protein content and other parameters when you source from different areas or just across different seasons and things like that. So batch to batch variation is there. we would also, if there's this problem of actually determining the cultivar and the varieties that we are sourcing, because at say macro level, the protein, carbohydrate, fat content are similar, but there are certain other micromolecules that affect the sensory properties that vary across the cultivars. It's difficult to actually pin down and get a solid answer that which is the cultivar that you are getting supplied. So these are the kind of challenges we face on the supply of raw materials. There is also certain amount of challenge that we face on the equipments that we are looking at. For example, extraction equipment that we use. They are mostly made by foreign companies, and they have very, very long lead times. So getting those equipments also in certain cases, it's expensive and that there's a lot of lead time. So yeah, these are the two main challenges that I see.
So much for listing that out. That's actually very helpful, and especially when you spoke about batch-to-batch variability, it's something that we've been hearing about a lot. Rinka, do you have any comments on the overall maturity of the smart protein ecosystem, the stage at which it is right now, and how these can be addressed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still at a very nascent stage, I would say, compared to some of the other markets. But is the opportunity there? Absolutely, yes. And I think one thing that's very important for it to mature up and to grow to the next level is really the power of collaborating and building a very strong open innovation kind of a system. And I'm extremely impressed, and I was just telling this to Varun a little while ago, saying that if I came here 3 years ago, and now I can clearly see the ecosystem evolving, building, and growing. And I think it's phenomenal job done by GFI, so really well done on that. But I think that is going to be one very, very important success factor that we would have. And I think some of the work that, whether it's flavor houses, whether it's equipment manufacturers and stuff like that, I think it's great. And of course, if investors can come forward as well. But the other important thing I see for it to get to that level of maturity is collaborating also, if possible, on the whole space of distribution. And I think that's one challenge with a lot of the startups face, obviously high margins and things like that. So which is where I'm saying, is there a possibility of small startups working with large organizations, using distribution channels, things like that. So I think these I would say would be other part. And the other thing is manufacturing, of course. While I think some of the stuff that, some of the manufacturing units that have been set up today, and someone was telling me that they actually become BRC certified, which is phenomenal. I mean, if we've got a BRC certified plant-based factory in India, which can export, we have reached a certain level of maturity for sure, So I think these are all the things are on the right track. It's just obviously about, and that's where I think the momentum will come when you get the consumer demand. And for you to create consumer demand, you need to be making sure, and that's what I think the lady from Licious as well said, that you need to understand your consumer extremely well. You need to make sure that you've got products and portfolio of ingredients and everything that you are doing, which is solving some sort of a problem or creating a need for the consumer. So I think it's some ways to go, but I think all the indicators are all in the right track. Yeah.
How you've hinted at like a positive growth for the sector while we're highlighting the challenges. I think that's really nice. Dr. Rao, in your experience working closely with startups in the space, could you detail out for our audience what you see as emerging white spaces? And how we can really provide more versatile smart protein products, not just in India, but also export them?
I think it is, millets space itself is small, and then, but I'm very happy to report that there are a couple of startups, they have started their journey investing on this smart protein. And there are many challenges that are there for them to take it up. I think it's not that they must be doing it in isolation. They must be getting into this. This is very vital for us, as she was also telling, Rinka was telling about the open innovation, how we bring in the combinations, all these things. Still it is not matured, but then some way it has begun. In fact, at the very summit itself, I think pre-COVID I attended, and this time there's a lot of change, and especially everything connects with your tongue, and you go out and see there is something to eat and to tell that. Otherwise it was, last time when I saw, it was just a little I thought it would take longer time, and in between the COVID time, and I think things are moving in the right direction, but a lot needs to be done. Lot needs to be done, especially licensing this thing. So these startups forums and other. One important thing is that this production and consumption markets are disconnected. When there are disconnect, you find, especially in a product like millets, being a smart protein or millets per se itself. So the digitization would really help them to understand that what is the space that is there. The farmer, they do not know what for they are producing. And the consumers, they don't know where they get it also. And in between the startups who are engaged in these things, there is a lot of things. Supply chain issues are several, and especially during COVID, the supply chain was disrupted. So these problems now are being rectified as it is evolving over a period of time. I'm sure that once they get mature, things will be evolving, because the number of startups that are coming up is huge, especially the CAGR you see in millets and all those things. That's a very interesting thing. Well, I'm sure that many would not remain, but as I think Rinka will agree with this, but there are some people getting the investment, they're standing, stabilizing and all. And this plant protein, because now the millet is projected as a year of millets, and the protein which is piggybacking on that, smart protein. I think that is an opportunity which they must be able to capitalize and bring in that positioning, proper positioning. I think a technology institute like us must be able to give them that sort of a hand-holding and the knowledge that is needed for them to take and just move forward, hand-holding with the other stakeholders also.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, a lot of these startups do require hand-holding support. You've also hinted that there's like this data gap between the production and then the supply chains and also the innovation that's coming in. And here, I'm going to my next question for Naina. Where do you think the government can, really support these startups and how we can work with each other?
So I think when we are talking about the entire smart protein space, first we will have to have a very well-defined regulatory framework. And this is a conversation we had the other day regarding harmonization of HS codes, for instance. And it's very important for us to also sort out the whole debate over labeling, right? It could be the usage of terms like dairy or meat, because given the fact that 200 million Indians are employed in the livestock and dairy industry, so this is a sector that is socially and politically very sensitive. So I think at this stage, it would be more helpful if we don't pitch the smart protein sector as a rival to the traditional livestock industry. We should instead argue that the two industries can coexist. So firstly, once we have regulations in place, then the line ministries will have an incentive to actively engage with the sector. And then it will be easier for us to bring the smart protein sector and have special incentives for this sector, like I spoke about the production-linked incentive scheme. So I think once the regulatory framework is well-defined, everything else will follow suit.
Yeah, you've hinted at some of the critical challenges we're facing right now, but also you're speaking GFI's language, because we've been saying that, this industry is seeking to provide that option to those who want to reduce their consumption of animal-derived proteins. So, yeah, we're not looking to disrupt any market right now. So we've heard some unique perspectives from this panel. India can become a supply chain by utilizing indigenous crops. We have an opportunity to also drive down the global production costs and also supply, very unique ingredients from India. I'm interested to hear about how we can chart a path forward to success. Rinka, can you tell us some, the opportunities in just facilitating some corporate partnerships and how that would be really helpful for the smart protein sector?
Thanks. Yeah, in fact, just before I say that, maybe I'll just add on to what Naina was saying. I think the other thing that we need to look at from an opportunity perspective is not just to not see it as an anti-dairy or anti-meat kind of a platform, but just to play on the fact that if you can give a nutritionally dense, vegetarian, vegan, animal-free, dairy-free option, you are giving actually a good quality protein solution for Indians, who are, by the way, deficient. Yeah. So I think there is a very big nutrition story to be told, rather than just being that you are a dairy alternative and a meat alternative, which it is. But there is, for the rest of India, there is a large story to be told in terms of nutritional quality. So I think that's important. As far as corporate partnerships are concerned, like I said even earlier, I think one thing that I'm seeing today, and when I see some of the stuff that I even tasted, by the way, outside, I think the quality of products that we have actually developed and put out there are actually fantastic, and that's come because of the partnerships. That's come because you've got the different flavor houses, the different ingredient companies, and it's, I think, now working extremely well in tandem. Whether it's fat suppliers and things like that. So I think that's coming through very well. So that partnership's working very well. People like us who are doing R&D, developing products for a lot of the startups as well as larger companies, are clearly saying consumer backward. So saying what's the consumer problem? How do you work it back? So that's another part of the ecosystem which I think is working well. As far as working with the large companies and organizations, I would say that's where I think the link is still weak, and it needs to be stronger. And I think that is where I think it could be either it is from large companies who are providing ingredients and so on, but also large companies who could be distribution partners. It could be sort of, I don't know, more strategic marketing partners, things like that. Maybe it's an Amazon, maybe it's some of these other online platforms as well, right? So how do we work with these partners to be able to, sort of in some ways incentivize what is happening here and sort of facilitate the growth of the sector. So I think there is definitely an opportunity there, and I was just telling this to somebody outside that it's not that I'm seeing too many large companies present here today. I only see a lot of startups. I see, of course, the entire back-end ecosystem, which is the ingredient companies and so on, which is fantastic. I would love to see the front end as well. And I think that is something that possibly, organizations like yourselves as well, a lot of us will have to work towards. Yeah, and see how can we build strategic partnerships there. And one more important thing I would say is corporate is one thing, but also the whole academic partnerships, like the Millet Research Institute, like some of the processing technology and all of that. We did work last year, for example, which was phenomenal. This was during peak COVID. We did trials at Cornell University in the US, sitting and coordinating from India, and we got samples made, everything was done, products were approved and launched. So I think it's possible to do it virtually. I think it's just a question of getting all the right people together. Yeah, so that's my take on this.
Yep. All great points. Thank you so much. I'll move on to Dr. Deba Mitra. How can Brabender partner with smart protein innovation hubs in India, especially when there is an increasing need for pilot and lab scale equipments?
So in terms of Brabender, currently we have lab scale extruders, but we are launching our pilot scale extruder early next year. So currently, like when it comes to the situation in India, so as all of us are aware that Dr. Gurmeet Singh, he has one of our extruders and he's doing phenomenal work with helping the startups, as well as he's doing a lot of research as well in his lab, which is great. So that's one potential that we saw, and that's the reason we want to try this out with other universities and with other research institutes and try to get some research done, because even with research, we can definitely push the technology to the industry as well. And that also, I would say, encourages the startups as well to get into the space more, so that you have more data and more relevancy to what exactly is happening. Because as all of us know that it takes time for what you're doing in the lab to come in the real world. It takes a lot of time. But if we all try to work together, we can, reduce that transition time to say to 5 years or something of that sort. So that is one thing that I would like to mention. And another thing is that I believe that if we all work together in collaboration, I mean, the bigger industries, the medium-sized industries, and the academia, it will really be great. And to what Rinka just mentioned about the trials that you had in Cornell virtually, so even with Brabender, we did the same with a lot of startups, and that's how we sold our extruders back in the 2020 and 2021 era. So that also helped us. Yes, virtually also it's possible. It's not necessary that you need to always be there in person and do it. So that's one thing. And another quick point that I would like to add here is that when it comes to extrusion processing, a lot of people are not really aware of what the processing looks like, because the machine is huge and it is intimidating when it comes to processing or how to use the machine. So that's where Brabender also comes into picture, that we train people, we train the students as well, like in US and even in TDU as well, the students run the machine. So it's that easy and it's not intimidating. And of course, we are there to support when it comes to when it comes to the machinery part as well. Also with the research and development, we are very keen on helping our customers. We've been doing that in the US and Europe as well, and we want to do that in India. So I'm optimistic that we can do that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the first extruder I saw was the one at TDU, and I was so interested. I was telling Dr. Gurmeet, okay, where does this go? Yeah, it's really nice to see that equipment, and it's a very core piece of what's needed for India as well to scale. And thank you for telling us about Brabender and the pilot scale facility. That's really exciting. So a lot of people speak about smart protein through like moral lens, but very few make a case for an economic perspective really. Several countries also have now included alternative protein within their economic priorities, and how it can be more climate secure and things like that. But we really want to understand, what does success look like for India in like the next 10 years? Now, to present the closing thoughts, I would like to first call upon Kevin, Rinka, Nana, from your perspective, from the corporate, government, and the startup ecosystem. Can you tell us more about how we can work with each other, work with government, academia, the startup ecosystem? Just any closing thoughts, and you can take about a minute or two each.
Sure. So I would like to describe our community here in India as not just closely knit, but also high density and high diversity ecosystem. So there are a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and almost everybody has some or the other complementarity with everyone. In fact, I was joking with Rinka backstage that we are working on many projects, but we meet more often on such panel discussions than actual work meetings. But that's a good sign. So we do work, but yeah. So that's something that's very interesting, that we bump into each other often. There's a lot of collaboration that happens naturally. People seek out help, and in fact, I'm going to do that same thing with Devomitra and Dr. Rao after this panel. So that's something very organic, very well, that is happening since last 3 or 4 years. And one small incident I want to talk about is during the launch of Imagine Meets, there was some stage, some event where Ritesh Deshmukh was talking about what the product is, and Salman Khan was there. And for some reason, Ritesh Deshmukh fumbled, and Salman Khan took over saying that, आप प्लांट में से मीट बनाते हैं जो बिल्कुल मीट जैसा लगता है, लेकिन उतना ही प्रोटीन देता है और वेजिटेरियन लोग खा सकते हैं. So that was a moment when I thought, okay, if Salman Khan, who has a very wide reach in all strata of customers and consumers, if he can explain this simply and we can create that kind of a need and pull, I think that will be a big turning point where we'll stop looking at just a small segment of consumers to serve and look at a much larger swath for us as an industry and an ecosystem to succeed.
Absolutely, and I think for me, I think what success would look like, and like he rightly said, I think one thing that actually struck me since morning that I've been here is probably this sector right now, which is emerging and coming together, is probably the most close-knit sector I've seen. I've not seen ingredient companies, everybody very purpose-led in terms of what they want to deliver. So I think that's fantastic. What success would look for me would be, one is that I would ideally not want this to be just an anti-dairy, anti-meat thing. It is about providing great quality nutrition to Indian consumers. Incidentally, yes, it's vegetarian, vegan, and all of that, which is great. So that for me, and it has to be nutritionally meaningful and dense. So for me, that's what success would mean. And the second thing for me that would mean success is affordability. Yeah, and really being able to get mass scale adoption is when it would be successful and you get scale, and for that cost has to come through. And that will also come partly through a lot of partnerships, etc. And so yeah, I think these are two things that for me would be, I would say yes, then kind of in some ways you've arrived,
Hear me? Yeah. I feel given a massive talent pool in biotechnology and food technology, and given the low cost of labor in India, I feel if India is able to draft regulations well on time in the next year or two, we can have a distinct first mover advantage. And I definitely think that we could position ourselves as the export hub for this segment. Because when you look at traditional dairy and livestock products, our export industry is suffering because we are unable to meet the quality standards. But when you look at the smart protein space, we will not be struggling with challenges related to zoonotic diseases, FMD, antimicrobial resistance. So I feel this sector is very promising, but also it's very important for us to, at this stage, dispel the notion that this sector is elitist. It's very important to clear myths and misconceptions, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. Consumer education is definitely on the agenda. Before we moved on to Vidyati ji to present the closing thoughts, Dr. Debo Mitra, Dr. Rao, do you have any thoughts on, let's say, technology transfers or, scaling the next generation talent pool?
I think that's a very big challenge, but I think as she was telling, Naina was just telling that India has a decisive advantage, I feel so. And we must really capitulate and try to work on the economics very much, and then looking for not just as a niche product, but then how to mainstream this thing. So the benefit would go to the large space of various targeted groups where protein malnutrition is very rampant. So with that, I think this technology, what we have, and the type of the machinery that is extraction process and all those things has to be worked, and I think the best minds in the IITs and all this must be a targeted task force must be made, so that if with that task force then linked up with the technology, then the export forum that can happen. I think we have a very bright prospects, but the challenge is how much time would we take to go to that? It's evolving. Can we really fast track it? That's a big question.
Dr. Debo Mitra?
I would just I would just continue to the thought that you just mentioned. So I believe that it's very important for us, like in India, to introduce courses in college levels, which would specifically focus on, like specific subjects where you study the ingredients or ingredient functionalities, as well as plant-based meat, as well the technology, even extrusion processing, because back when I did my master's in India, I was not aware of extrusion processing, but I did my PhD in extrusion processing. That was because I went to US. So that's one thing that we really need to focus on. And I'm glad that now the ecosystem has changed a lot in the last 3 to 4 years, but I think we need to put in more focus, and it's very important for the industry also to jump into this and work in collaboration with the academics to set up some hubs in the university itself where they can educate the students and try to inculcate, focus upon more on these areas. I think, that would just what I'd like to add.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you've talked about some of the work we will be doing with the Smart Protein Innovation Hubs, and we've been working with the Sector Skill Council for food processing, and recently we launched India's first dedicated job role for plant-based food, which is a plant-based food technologist role, and currently we're preparing curricula for that as well, and hopefully over the next few years it can also go to fermentation and cultivated. So I think it's also the world's first dedicated curriculum, so that's a big win. Thank you so much. I'd like to move on to Vidyati ji to present the closing thoughts for this session. Please tell us how we can work with APIDA. We have been, but how can we further work with APIDA to really support this sector? You've been one of the most important stakeholders for GFI India. Really thank you for your support. So looking forward to hear any thoughts you have on that.
First of all, I want to extend thanks to Madam Naina for raising the issue of standards, regulation, and its importance in the supply chain. So apart from that, I wish that with the stakeholder consultations, all together come out with a national policy on the smart protein. It is a very, very much important aspect. If we have some policy, then we can address all the issues in the supply chain, particularly for the financial incentives, fiscal incentives, because in the noontime session, some of the stalwarts of the biotechnology or the fermented protein sector, they have highlighted the issue of the not getting the allotment of the lands for the expansion of their plants. So such issues that can be resolved if we have a policy. And moreover, we have to work together with the state government also, because agriculture is a state subject and center subject is the promotion or the trade promotion or the export falls under the center government. So we have to constitute some joint working group for the stakeholder consultation at state level, and we have to set up some interministerial group also to resolve all the issues and for the better coordination. So whatever the hurdles the entrepreneurs are facing or existing or maybe the new entrepreneurs, that can be resolved together, and it would be better if we set up a desk in the ministry or maybe in the APEDA. So this entrepreneur should not run post to the pillar to resolve their issues. So one point, all the issues may be resolved and they get all the benefits in the one roof. So if we facilitate and work out some plan or a roadmap, it would be better for the industry also. And moreover, we can develop some clusters also, as mentioned in the past, as a hub also. So in the clusters, we can have a integrated supply chain. All the ingredients are available, packing material available, logistics available, infrastructure available. So the cost of production will be come down. Moreover, we have one more strength in comparison to the developed countries, that we have more than 80,000 species of the medicine plants or herbal medicine plants. If we fortify our products with these herbal medicine plants, then we can address the ailments or the health disorders. So this can be our brand theme in international market also. So it will be very fruitful, and I hope and I wish and I believe India still has an edge over the developed countries in this sector, though we are lagging behind the technology. But I am very much optimistic with the research and development and the competency of our scientists. We can get out the more better solution which are cost competitive to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for energizing us with the optimistic comments. Well, with that, we come to the end of day one. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much to all the members of this panel.